Do you ever feel stuck? Stuck in the way you perceive things, or stuck in the way you feel about things, that you don't seem to be able to get beyond it? Like the missing tile syndrome. You see what's missing, but somehow you can't see the bigger picture and see how beautiful and wonderful and good things are, because all you can see is what's missing. Why would that be? It's because we all have a nature. We all have a nature that we've been given. Ultimately, it came from a pure good place, that nature. Now, it could, because of the things that we've gone through, how we were raised, how we engaged in life. So, our nature might now be not so, shall we say, beautiful. But even the way it was in its beautiful state, there are two basic natures of an individual. One, that a soul stems from the right side of the divine order of things, and one that stems from the left side of the divine order of things. The right side is chesed, is giving, a giving that is without boundaries. So that would mean, and how would you serve God? How would you do a mitzvah? No boundaries. No boundaries to the mitzvah. How would you study Torah? Well, likewise, in a way that you're so engaged that there's nowhere else to go. Like we're now, so engaged, right? How would you be giving? Also, without a boundary, so to speak. And that sounds maybe terrific. So what's the left side? The left side is there are boundaries, very specific. You are very precise in everything, very exacting. You're there on time for whatever it is. The mitzvah you do it with all its proper details. The giving of charity, you give according to what the law says. So that's not a negative thing. It's actually a very positive thing. Right? Those are the two personality types. One walks with God with a broad step. The other one walks with in a modest manner. So which one's right? So I'm sure you guessed it. They're both right. They're both positive. Because there's a time that you need the broad step and sometimes you need the modest manner. Sometimes you need to be very precise in everything that you do. Everything is oiske cheshbon, as we say in Yiddish. Everything is accounted for appropriately, properly, every minute of your day. And then there's sometimes you got to be so engaged that, you're overflowing. And you kind of lost sense of time in a sense, right? So both of them. And we all have a unique nature. One nature of a person can be more coming from the right side of the divine, and another can be from the left side of the divine. But they're both divine in their root source. Now, of course, how we've experienced life, how we were raised, how we experience life may corrupt the nature of that soul. But beyond its corruption, both are correct. But here's the point, though. Both are correct. But if I'm of the right side, I need to learn how to incorporate the left side. That is not my nature. If I'm from the left side of the divine order, I need to incorporate the right side in order to be complete. Otherwise, all I'm doing is following my God-given nature. Again, without its corruption, I'm talking about. Without the negative things that we've gone through life that, have maybe done things, led us in a place that, we're not in such a healthy place. I'm talking about that we're in a healthy place, but we're only following the nature that God gave us. That's not what we need to do. We need to be able to incorporate the other quality of my soul, because there's no thing that doesn't have a place. Sometimes we need to be very precise. Sometimes we need to be without boundaries. Where do we see this concept in the Torah? So this is exemplified by the two famous houses of study in the Talmud, called the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai. So it was known that the house of Shammai was very stringent, and the house of Hillel was very lenient in how they dealt with Jewish law. Now, why were they that way? Because based on their soul. The house of Hillel, the students there, their souls came from the right order of things, the divine order. The house of Shammai came from the left side. So what does that mean? That means, so the way they saw in their minds, the way they perceive things, in a pure state, not in a, not with all the baggage that we've come to carry because of all of the, negative things, the traumas and whatever we picked up on the way. Talking about people that worked on themselves, and yet they reflect one character quality naturally, because that's the way their character quality of their soul was created. So again, Hillel coming from the right side, so they saw things from chesed. Chesed means kindness, means to embrace. So they saw with their minds and perception in their minds on how the issue at hand was something to embrace, which would mean make it kosher, make it valid, make it pure, for example. Shammai, on the other hand, their souls, the house of Shammai, their souls came from the left side, so they saw gvura, contraction, limitation, boundaries, specified judgment. So they saw then things on how things would be not kosher, invalid, not pure, based on that. Yet, what do we see? From both houses, that Hillel, who would be permitting things, they sometimes didn't permit. They sometimes saw it as they saw the stringency in the law, and therefore they made it prohibited. And likewise, Shammai, they did the same thing. Some, even though their natural inclination, because of the root source of their souls from the left side, they were able to also at times make a judgment and give a ruling that would be lenient, that would make something permissible, that would embrace the thing, which is the quality of the right side. How come they did that? Why? It's because when it comes to holiness, there has to be inclusion. This is the ultimate inclusion. The ultimate inclusion is in our soul, right? If we can, by the way, parenthetically, if we can be more inclusive in ourselves and be able to perceive the other side in something, and not just perceive the way we naturally look at something, then we'll be able to be inclusive of others on the outside. May not look like us, be like us, and so on and so forth. In any case, so the divine quality is inclusion. So chesed has to incorporate gvura, gvura has to incorporate chesed. Loving kindness has to be able to incorporate strict, adherence strict, uh, you know, limitations, shall we say, or boundaries, right? Loving kindness is not about boundaries. Gvura is about boundaries. You need to be able to incorporate both, whatever the quality is. Because in holiness, in divinity, there is no division. So in supernal holiness, they have to be able to incorporate the various traits that there are. So Chesed, again, has to incorporate Gvura, and Gvura has to incorporate Chesed. And this is therefore what's called a union, as is taught in the hidden wisdom of Kabbalah, right? That even though they are really opposite of each other, but they are mutually inclusive of each other. Now, where else do we see this concept? We see it even before Hillel and Shammai, which is in the Talmud, but we see it in the Torah itself. With who? Abraham and Isaac, Avram and Yitzchak. Avram is known, he was the embodiment of divine kindness, right? As is known, right? He would be out there, even after, even in being in pain after a circumcision, looking for guests, people to come and be a part of his household. And yet God says about him, I know now that you stand in awe of God, which is the opposite of love. It's an opposite emotion. It's not the opposite, right? It's the opposite emotion. Of course, in the story, where he took his son, his only son that he loved, Isaac, Yitzchak, and brought him as an offering on an altar. Parenthetically, God only said, bring him up, which he did bring him up. He didn't say slaughter him. But he understood that because he wanted to see in him what? What did he want to see? He had tested him before that. But every test that he got straight A's on were something within his nature. Now he did something completely against his nature. What's that? To take his son and bring him as an offering. That is an attribute of Gevura. To slaughter his son. That's the complete opposite of what loving kindness is. That's an expression of the epitome of the attribute of Gvura. And he succeeds in flying colors. Why? Because divine quality means not following what your natural instinct and nature is, but to be able to mutually incorporate something that is the opposite of your natural character quality. And therefore he was able to do it. So with Avram, who's the embodiment, Abraham, the embodiment of loving kindness, he has also a power within him of Gevura, which is an opposite quality. One is more dominant and therefore more manifest, that's his loving kindness, as opposed to the less dominant one, which is the Gevura, but yet there to be used when necessary. And likewise with his son, Isaac, Yitzchak, who was brought as the offering, he was the embodiment of the opposite of him, of Abraham, of the left side, of Gevura. It was about more self-reflection, more deep, and we see, what did he do? He dug wells, not just physically dug wells, but he dug deep within inside of himself, which is the left side, Gvura, not out there, in there. And yet, so he is the embodiment of that, but he was mutually able to incorporate Chesed. One is more revealed, the personification of their natural character quality, while the other one is more hidden, but there to be used whenever needed, whenever necessary. So, when we are able to rise above ourselves, and this is even with the natural holy qualities of our soul that we were given that have not been corrupted still need to rise above. Now, we, on the other hand, maybe have a lot more to deal with because of even the corruption of our quality of the soul that we have. Our kindness might not be an expression of divine kindness. It might just be a very self-directed kind of kindness. Our gvura, our constraint, our boundaries, may not be healthy boundaries because they may not be of a divine quality, that therefore you could mutually include also doing things that are beyond the boundary. But some of the thoughts. All right, any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Davida, do we receive the character of our soul based on the live missions in this world? Absolutely correct. Absolutely. In two ways. In that when you are, let's give an example. Let's say you come from the right side of the divine, and therefore you are a very giving person. So it could be that you're one of the missions that you embrace, that you feel very much an affinity to, is having guests at your home, and you do it without a boundary. What does that mean? You do it without a boundary. In other words, in your home, if someone came to synagogue and they don't have a place, even though they didn't call up beforehand, you don't even know too much about them. Come on over, for sure. That's kindness without a boundary. You didn't check this person out. You don't know if the person is what, and you invite them, and you do that all the time. Now, how do you mutually incorporate? Now, so then, and that becomes maybe, you're kind of based on the nature of your soul, that mitzvah that talks to you. But what doesn't talk to you is making the boundary. And sometimes you need to create boundaries because that's the right thing to do, not necessarily because, I'm creating that boundary because I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want you to hurt me. No, that's not a healthy boundary, actually. That's just sometimes we might need to do that because we're not in a healthy place. So we need to create that boundary. But to create that as a proper boundary would be because it's the right thing to do, not because I got to protect myself. To protect myself means it's all about myself. Well, that's not coming from a good place, even when it comes to boundaries. Now this person who by nature doesn't create those boundaries, they need to sometimes create that boundary in other instances where they might not, because their nature is just to give indiscriminately. Sometimes you might need to. Why? I'll give an example. Let's say your wife is different than you, and she is very much, boundary ridden or driven, and says, you know what, this week, let's not have. But your nature is, what do you mean? And now you come into synagogue and there's someone who's in great need. They don't have a place for a Friday night meal. Your fellow Jew needs, comes and doesn't have a place. So what do? But your wife told you not this week. So for the person who has that indiscriminate desire to take care of that person, can't. Or they can't do it in their home. What they could do is maybe get them invited to someone else's home. That would be, understanding the need of your wife, and you incorporate, gladly so, because this is the boundary that's necessary in order that you find another place for them. Just an example. So in other words, so the point that I want to bring out is that our life mission is going to be because of the positive sense of the nature of our soul, and the opposite of it, that which is going to become a struggle. Of that which is going to be the struggle. That which we struggle with will also be part of our life mission. Because I'm rooted on the right side and this is my nature, yeah, but I got to incorporate the other side. I've got to be balanced between the two. Yes, one will be more manifest, more out there naturally, because that's my natural, right? Just like Avram Avinu was that way, and so was Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, right? They were in their natural way, but you need to be able to incorporate both. That's what holiness is. Okay, excellent question. Thank you, Davida. Any other questions? I don't see anything. Instagram. No, don't see. Yeah, more important to be kind than right. That's true, Bara. Yeah. That is absolutely true. Okay. All right. Okay, folks. Thank you. Rabbi Ronnie Fine coming to you for Chabad, Zich and Kadesh, my Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you, Tanya. Have an amazing, wonderful day. Rambam coming up. Thank you.